So we talked about NCAA tournament opportunity, and there's a tie-in here with what happens in the SEC play the final week and then the SEC tournament. But standings update, Auburn has clinched. They are the outright SEC champs. They sang a little Rocky Top after seeing Jemai Mashak's buzzer beater to beat Alabama, so beating Auburn's rival and clinching it for Auburn. Florida and Alabama are both 12-4, Tennessee 11-5 in the SEC, with Missouri 10-6. Mizzou losing to Vandy. Tennessee has the head-to-head against Mizzou and now jumps them in the standings. So Tennessee is in a good position at number 4, could potentially jump up, as Tennessee has Ole Miss and South Carolina this week. Bama's final week is tough. They're just in a brutal stretch with Florida at home and then at Auburn next weekend. Florida has Bama on the road and then Ole Miss to close out. But Tennessee in a good position to be in that double bye in the top 4. We'll see if they can move up. But part of this comes back to, Mark, how much it affects your NCAA tournament chances. I think that's been a bigger question the last couple of years when Tennessee went to Sunday and won it and then didn't seem to affect the seeding. So you want to be in there partly for rest, I would say, be in that double bye, not having to play extra games, but then maybe you want to get out, as you were saying, because Tennessee this week more than the SEC tournament might be able to wrap up whatever seed it gets in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, you look at yesterday with Zakai being as much foul trouble as he was, Boswell got very little playing time. He went in and went out pretty quick. And so there's not much faith in that position. And so, I look at Florida. I think you said they went down and then they jumped us in the net rankings by 1, even though we won and Florida lost, right? So some of our schedule's not as tough as Alabama's and Florida's down the stretch. So what does that do even if we do win out? And how much do they take that in consideration? But to me, it continues to be about us and making sure that we're fine-tuning and staying locked in and in preparation for the NCAA tournament.
It looks like no matter what, they'll at least be like a top 6 seed, depending on the tiebreakers and who wins and who loses. So I think they're in a great position regardless heading into the SEC tournament. And I wonder, with their lack of depth right now, like how much they might try to force a situation with Bishop or D-Stone to maybe get more reps, because Zakai might get early fouls or Felix might get early fouls, and you'll need someone else to kind of step in for them when you want a long run in the NCAA.
And the hard part of that from a coaching side of things is like, what's gotten you here, you want to keep doing that, and all of a sudden you start, the hesitancy is you start tinkering with the lineup and what you're running and not running, and mentally does that get you out as a player? Does that get you out of the rhythm that we're in and being locked in defensively and offensively?
And with all this swirling around, I think with Barnes, he's just looking at, we still need to keep getting better. Like you're saying, we still need to work on us. He mentioned yesterday about identifying like 5 possessions a game that we need to start correcting some things. Look at the start of the game. Tennessee had like 7 turnovers. Alabama had 14 points off those turnovers. You can't keep having these shaky starts. So all this double bye, I get it. I'm all for it. NCAA tournament, I think they look more at body of work, guys. I think Tennessee with their 10 quad 1 wins. Auburn, what do they have now, 16? I mean, that's unheard of. But it's going to be the quad 1 wins, body of work. If you get to the SEC semifinals, I think, like Mark's saying, I would just as soon have a little bit of extra rest those days over. You were like 331st in the nation in bench minutes. So I don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of your bench now.
No.
Well, I think the one thing yesterday, areas of improvement, Dubar defensively. I mean, he made a couple shots, but
his block shot.
Yeah, he had the block shot, but a couple times he got down in the post and got scored on pretty easily. Gave up a rebound a couple times. So I think that's an area of improvement.
Right.
One thing I like that Alabama did to us is, we really jumped to the ball and get in the gaps on penetration. And so what you saw Alabama doing yesterday was setting flare screens for Sears for them to skip it over the top, and that created them some space for them offensively. They're a great attacking team into the paint. And so I'd expect us to look at that, and how do we get the ball continually inside more to Akbar and to Igor to get those paint touches.
Yeah, because I really like what Tennessee did on defense, because Alabama likes to get at least their first shot off within the first 10 seconds of the shot clock. They did not get to do that very often against Tennessee yesterday, especially in the second half, where you saw those paint points really become a lot more even in the second half as compared to the first. And Chuck, like you said in the beginning, like the turnovers were a problem in the beginning. They were pickpocketing Zakai Ziegler. It was bad passes by Igor Milicic, and Alabama made them pay for it every single time. So I think if they can just have better ball security security like a good running back would. Like, I think they might be a little bit better as they move forward.
One other thing I wonder with the SEC tournament, the conversation of, okay, where do you want to be? So Tennessee wants a double bye. We know that. You don't want to start earlier to have to play more games. We're having the conversation of when do you want to maybe finish up. This is a team where Jemai Mashak, his mindset, he talked about how amped up he is. We know how hard Zakai Ziegler goes. And I think that just stands for this team. How do you manage that? Like if you're in the coach's position, maybe you're good with going home on Saturday. Your players may want to win the SEC tournament and play all the way through Sunday. What is that dynamic like where you have your plan management for the NCAA tournament versus how the players are approaching everything?
I think a lot of times coaches will have that communication, just to be clear with them. Not that you're going to play differently, but they can do some different substitutions. They can do some different things. The other thing that we're not talking enough about is, if the game, how it was called yesterday, is what the NCAA tournament is going to be called, like, that's something to be thinking about, because we don't have the depth to be able to withstand the way that those officiators were calling the game yesterday with the hand checks and the bodies, because they're allowing us to play that way all season.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they started changing that whistle, and they, to their credit, they stayed that way the entire times, and players adapted. But if that's how it's going to be called in the NCAA tournament, that's going to be tough for us to advance against really good teams, because the way that we play such a physical brand of basketball on the defensive end, and that allows us to be as good as we are.
Mark, I took 8 pages of notes on this game. On the first page, circled, is this the way the NCAA tournament is going to be called?
Is it good that they experienced that then, at least?
Yeah, and we won, right? And against
right.
a team that's going to be a potential Final Four national championship contender. So it's not a negative, but it's just something that we got to be mindful of when you're talking about what are the coaches going to look at to try to adapt and take into their back pocket when they prepare for the NCAA tournament. This is one of those that you can go to. Look, we've been in the huddles where you can go to your team and say, hey, look, we've been there before. Right now we can say we're down 4 with 36 seconds left. We've been there before. Stay with the game plan, and we'll end up getting a win just like we did on Saturday.
And I think that's kind of what we were saying like last segment too, like how much of this will be reps for the team and maybe will force them in the SEC tournament to play guys like Bishop Boswell, keep them in even after that bad pass turnover that gives Alabama an extra possession. Like, would you then maybe want to keep him in a little bit longer in the SEC tournament so he gains that experience?
And of course, Tennessee has to be mindful of 2 games to go. When we come back, Ole Miss, South Carolina to close out the regular season with Tennessee in a position to go after a #1 seed. We'll get you the scouting report on Tennessee's opponents when we come back.